Hey everyone, welcome to another live stream from the Birb Nest. Again, like yesterday, I'm here with my buddy, Jay Trader. Hey man, how are you?
There we are. Good. How are you, man?
Yeah, all good, all good. I'm so stoked about this one.
Very excited.
It's gonna be really good. But yeah, let's discuss this later. For now, we have the a video from our partners.
PrimeXPT is the most powerful trading platform offering immediate access to over 30 assets. Trade cryptocurrencies, forex, commodities, stock indices, and much more, all from a single Bitcoin settled account. Visit the link below and start trading on PrimeXPT in minutes.
Birb Network is an interoperable DeFi ecosystem offering token pre-sales, staking as a service, project incubation, and much more. Visit thebirbnest.com/Birb. Globe is an upcoming crypto derivatives exchange offering up to 100 times leverage on crypto and DeFi perpetual contracts. Sign up for early rewards at thebirbnest.com/Globe. Radix is the first Layer 1 protocol built specifically to serve DeFi. More information at thebirbnest.com/Radix. YFDAI is democratizing finance by creating the most secure, transparent, and user-friendly ecosystem of DeFi products. To learn more, visit thebirbnest.com/YFDAI.
Cool. So we are back, and at this point, I would like to welcome SignalFi, who is the mastermind behind BirbicatorPRO. Hey,
Good
SignalFi.
afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, everybody on the stream. It's nice to see everybody, even virtually. And sorry for the no cam pick, but that's just that's just how it's got to be. But very much looking forward to helping everybody get introduced to the BirbicatorPRO, and we can jump into it, Herc or Jay, whenever you want. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
So would you like to provide some background regarding BirbicatorPRO? How I guess it was through continuous discussions with CryptoBirb, what he wanted to show, some suggestions from you. Give us some background on how we came up with this.
The you guys can follow or check me out on Twitter. It's @signify_. But at the same time, a lot of my background has revolved around creating systems, full-scale systems that allow people to plan and execute trades. That's really the kind of fundamental basis behind BirbicatorPRO. It's one of the things that me and Birb talked about when we wanted to build an indicator, was something that accommodates the wide-ranging swath and spectrum of traders that exist in the market. You have momentum traders, you have swing traders, you have long-term holders, you have a lot of people that are using a lot of different indicators that they rely on already, all of which need to be kind of incorporated or at least thought of when an indicator that's going to be applied to the Birb Nest, it goes out the door. So again, most things, if everybody's just hearing this for the first time, BirbicatorPRO is very much a framework. It's editable, it's customizable. It's meant to be adaptable to every different type of trading style that's out there. And it also is built with, default settings, I would say, that are accommodatable for a lot of different styles out of the box. But, a lot of the things that we'll go through today, you'll see that there's different ways that you can tune things. There's different visual kind of cues that people have depending on their, visual acuity of how they view the market that makes sense to them. There's other things that don't make sense. So given that it's a framework, it's not a buy or sell indicator. It's really meant to be a side rail for how you kind of pick up the Birb Nest, how you pick up trading, and how you grow as a trader, learning how the market fundamentals move, and then using the flow of the market, which is very big in my understanding of the markets and my experience is obviously we have an up-down relationship. It's both emotionally causal as well as, market-driven dynamics. And all of that kind of culminates in this wave formation of the market, which can be assumed to be a bear and a bull market. And, collapsing that into an indicator is really the idea behind Birbicator, wrapping that idea around the commonly known fundamentals of a lot of different indicators, things like RSI and ATR and other things we'll get into, really help bridge the gap between people, things that people might have seen before and things that specifically are adapted to the Birbicator Pro and how it can help you, again, plan and execute trades. So without getting too lengthy or wordy, that's how kind of how I would introduce it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And by the way, before we start, I think Jay, you have a question. But before we start, just to let the people that are watching that we have today a giveaway, and that giveaway is 1 month free, Birbicator Pro. So the link is right in the description of the video, and we are going to show in a bit the secret code to unlock the giveaway.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, without much delay here, we're going to jump into Signify is going to share his screen, and we're going to go over some of the basics of the Birbicator. And yeah, it's going to be a very informal, informational, educational session here, and we're very excited to learn more and to see what we can do with this incredible indicator that he's worked so hard and for so long on, and that so many of our members in the Nest are now using, including myself. So yeah, without further ado, Signify, the stage is yours, man.
Thanks, Ray. No, and so guys, I'm going to live a lot on the 4-hour time frame because I think it'll be applicable uniquely to the environment that we're seeing today in the markets. So, not only is this maybe an identification of the different components of the Birbicator Pro, but it's also maybe something you can learn in terms of making a trade that you're currently in. Obviously, it'd be nice if we could use some actionable data and things that we talk about today to help you make a trade as we're moving sideways throughout this market. I'll be focusing on Bitcoin just because Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and that's usually applicable of or indicative of where the market is going. So in general, let's just talk about what Birbicator is. We talked about how originally in the intro, how Birbicator kind of defines these waves, these up and down patterns of cyclic movement between the up and the crescendo and then the down movement of the market. And if we were to think about that as a trading mantra for when we plan and enter trades, we know that the market is going to go down, it's going to hit a low, and then it's going to go up and establish a series of higher lows and higher highs, and then it eventually will collapse that price action into what is the wave that is running alongside of that price action. And then that wave will eventually, that momentum wave that is built up between price action and where price is going is going to eventually collapse into what we would call a channel, right? A consolidation period. And then either the wave continues to go up or the wave eventually continues to go down. So very much the visual aspect of Birbicator Pro out of the box gives you this wave dynamic of where the market's going. It's lagged intentionally in order to give you an idea of how much power is wrapped up into the leaning momentum that is charged up inside the price action. Any price action, even if it's quickly moving down like this particular area right here, even if it moves down quickly, it's still going to revert back to its mean, and that's kind of the idea that's built up inside these waves. So let's just go through the original components of the Birbicator Pro, and knowing that there's some fundamentals that everybody who picks it up needs to know. One of the main things that again was kind of talked about before was everybody likes to see different things on the chart. Everything makes sense to different people, and ultimately, being simple and being able to plan and execute trades with whatever visual you have is the most important part. You don't want to be conflicted with, more information than your, personal view and personal execution strategy can handle. And you also want to make sure you get enough information so that you can actually make a decision effectively. So for that reason, we gave you a couple different options on the style of what you can view. This is the full default version of Birbicator Pro, which includes not only the banded kind of extremes of price action, but also the momentum wave, as well as the actual much talked about baseline, which is this thick center line that runs in the middle of price action. If you, when you get the Birbicator Pro, you decide that this is too much information, you can easily transit to something like the bands, which again just give you the banded extremes of price action so that you can plan and execute trades within the bands. If you were someone who is more of the idea that you understand the momentum side of how price action goes, and you want to ride the waves, quote unquote, the momentum view is something that might be interesting to you, where we don't care about the extremes, although I would say that they're all very useful. It just is a personal kind of idea that goes along with your trading style. And if you're just beginning trading, this is one of the key components that I think the Nest in general, as well as the Birbicator Pro, can give you, is a different way to view price action and to learn your unique bias in the market and how the visuals can really help you and also hinder you from making the successful trades that you want to make. So knowing that there's different ways to look at the market, and in this case, different ways to enable different viewing patterns of the Birbicator Pro, that's important for every trader. And it may not be that you need everything. It may be that you just need this one singular line that is the continual idea of where you are in the market. And that's all that you need, and that's all that you want. And if you were to have everything enabled, even though it's useful to some traders, it may not be useful to you. And that's, again, going back to the idea that this is a framework and one that is meant to kind of adapt and conform to the different strategies and ideas that people have about the market. So that's one key element of the Birbicator Pro that I want to make sure that everybody knows is there and why it's there. Not everybody will see everything that's in here, and not everybody will be able to use it effectively. But it's there in case you want to start off with maybe a simple band or with everything. And then over time, as you learn the Birbicator Pro and you learn how it adapts to price action, about which lines actually give you the ideas and the signals that you want to see, you can choose to either add different signals or remove different visuals, because they are just all that you need. And that's one of the big core components. And I don't know if you guys want to jump in and just.
I think this is a very important point, that Birbicator Pro is a very versatile tool, and it's very adaptive to the different trading styles. So there are a lot of settings there, but it doesn't mean you need them all.
That's right. That's right. I mean, and we'll go through some of these right today. I mean, again, we can go through and spend probably a whole day or week learning how to use the Birbicator Pro in its entirety. And I don't want to be long-winded on different things. I just want to kind of give you guys an idea of what the core idea is behind Birbicator Pro, and have that be a basis for you to understand how you can pick it up and use it. The next thing that I wanted to go through was an identification of the wave length. So by default, and this is within the Birbicator Pro documentation, you can go online, you can actually read the documentation. It includes basically everything that I'm saying today. But just to make it apparent, because I think it's important, by default, Birbicator comes with what I'll call around 100 moving average kind of approach at price action. So everything that you see here is based on essentially 100 look back length of how many candles that this wave is based off of. And again, intentionally lagged so that it picks up this larger arc of price movement, and it allows the trader to be able to identify where the key points in breaking over the baseline, the core element of Birbicator Pro, and how its price is strong enough in order to take over this negative ascending wave that's coming down. This is a key fundamental kind of component of Birbicator Pro. While it seems like this is a negative kind of situation right here, or even over here, where you have negative momentum that's coming down, it's important to know about that. But after price has already kind of reverted back down to an extreme level, and we have an overbought situation on the bands marked by this particular shading right here, price started to reverse. And now we have to, at this point in the market, when we don't even know what goes on here, we have to think, well, we visited the lower extremes of the band, we're breaking over the baseline, and we're taking down this wave that is trying to keep price action down. So if we have enough momentum, we will continue up and we will start to create a new ascending upward wave, which is what we want to do if we want to go long. We want to be a part of that wave.
This divergence is important too, because it's not just an RSI or a singular indicator. It's based on a few different ones, correct?
That's right. So one of the big things everybody asks about divergences, and they're very important in the market. You know, when price goes up and an indicator goes down, that's important, and vice versa, because it tells us that more energy is being spent to push the price in the direction that the indicator or that the indicator is saying, which could mean that a divergence exists, which basically means that price is going to revert back to the other way. And a part of the Birbicator system, which makes it, at least these particular divergences, more powerful, is the fact that there's 10 different oscillators that are included within the divergence system. So when people say there's a divergence on 4 hours and they have an RSI indicator up on their chart, that is taking into account one particular calculation against price action, which is called RSI. If there's a divergence on RSI, that doesn't mean that that's the only thing that's actually going to be attributable to the market, and it doesn't mean that that's the only indicator that's going to tell you that price is going to revert. We take into account 10 different oscillators, including MACD, OBV, RSI, momentum. The list is on the docs, and I would, everybody wants to see them. Go ahead and read the list. But the whole point is that this divergent score, which is at 72% on here, I'm not sure if you guys can see that, that basically means that, about 7 out of the 10 oscillators that we track to see if there's a divergence are painting divergences to the positive upside, to the bullish side, when we get one of these signals. And that's important because that means that if one trader is looking at RSI, another one's looking at OBV, another one's looking at MACD, they're all going to be making their designations based on their own individual suite of tools. But Birbicator will be able to compress all that information down into one unified signal so that you know that this is the one that every single one of those traders is going to be acting on. Everybody gets the same signal here, even if you're not looking at MACD, RSI, OBV, or whatever. You get the signal that includes 10 different oscillators. That is kind of the unified view of the conformance of those oscillators saying, yes, we are in a bull divergence and we need to go the other way, which is very powerful. And that can also be tuned. Right now, by default, it's set at 75, so we get the maximum kind of strength in the divergences. They can be lagged, like right here. Momentum oscillators can kind of lag price action. You can still diverge against where the market really wants to go. But these generally denote by default where the price of momentum is going to go in the long term. If you wanted more resolution, we give you that option. If you want, only one of the 10 oscillators to agree, you're going to get more divergences that are painted, and those will basically be either actionable or not. But the whole point of us giving you an index score is to take into account multiple different oscillators and give kind of a filtered way of looking at the most powerful divergences that exist at any given time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Somebody has a question. What is the lag length? Not sure if this question here. Oops. There we go.
The trend length, right?
Yeah.
These?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they'll clarify their question.
He hasn't clarified. This is the question, but if it doesn't make sense, then our friend will clarify, I guess, in the comments.
Okay. Yeah, and so let's jump into what I was going to say. And divergences, I guess we handle that. There's a lot of different components to the Birbicator system, but the next big one is that it doesn't have to be, this larger kind of arcing momentum wave that you want to be a part of. Let's say that you're a short-term trader. Let's say that visually you like more of a closer to the price action kind of view of what's going on. That's why we give you these different trend modes. So these really kind of relate if you use standard moving averages at all ever. And this is in the documentation. You can kind of think of near as a 20. You can kind of think of medium as a 50, default 100, and long is right around 200. So
since
that,
sorry for jumping in, since you mentioned the documentation, it's very important to mention that this tool comes not with just dedicated documentation on how they can use the tool, how they can use Birbicator Pro, but it comes with exclusive videos that show trading strategy examples. And also our technical analysts in our Discord community, they almost always use Birbicator Pro to get signals in the calls that we publish. So members can get more familiar on how they can use it.
Yeah, it's highly recommended to go through the document at least once. For me, I had to go through it more than once. There's a lot to it. You get it when you sign up for the Birbicator, and if you're in the Nest and you don't have access to the documentation, just ask a team member, and we'll for sure send it your way.
yeah.
There is a question, if I may signify, from the audience, and I think this is one of the I will call it a misconception. So it says, does it work as a good for all time frames? It's something I guess that you have already answered. Is it scalping, or does it work better for certain time frames? What is the success rate if you follow the buy sell signals? And I guess this is the misconception here, right?
I mean, so we do have that in the documentation, and one of the things that, of course, in a market where everybody likes to have an automated system with back testability, we do have that information, and there is an example posted on the documentation website using I think it's Ethereum, but the buy and sell quote unquote signals, which I don't call buy and sell signals, they're baseline trend change signals, which basically denote when power is confirming there's momentum and a special type of stochastic indicator showing you that you have a cross of the baseline, which is the key component, the core of the BPRO, and there's momentum existing that is confluent with this movement down, there will be a signal that is fired. And using just those signals on, I would say, from 1 hour to daily, depending on the tuning, depending on the asset, it's not very simple in terms of out of the box, just pick it up and put it against anything and you're going to make money. Nothing is. And that's not what Birbicator is meant to do. Though if you did do it, I have tested it and it's profitable, from those hour time frames. Anything less, you're really kind of talking about a highly tuned kind of, you would have to do any kind of auto bot trading, which is specifically what I specialize in, by the way. A lot of the things that are online will allow you to make money in particular types of markets. And everybody has to be very aware that there is no easy street with any of that. All of the different things that you pick up and you can put against the market in an automated fashion, you're going to have different situations that occur where reversion momentum based algorithms aren't going to give you the best profitability. And over the long haul, if you were just to let it run, sure, you're going to be fine. But people tend to pick up different algorithms and different systems, and when they have 2 or 3 trades go against them, that's when they say that this thing is terrible. And it's really just about letting the system do its thing over time. And in that example, we have Ethereum. I think it was 67% hit rate with using TP1, and flipping signals back and forth on the 2 hour. Like if you were just to pick it up and throw it at Ethereum, you would have beat buy and hold since 2018, just using the signals. Again, it's just an example. I'm not trying to tout that as something that is what I want people to do. It's just a matter of knowing that it's possible, and the reversion aspect of the core of the baseline, as well as the momentum element that goes into these signals, which can be turned off, by the way. So again, if we wanted to just turn off the momentum filter that's on these signals, you would get a lot more signals. You get chopped up a lot more. And that's the reason why we provide the ability for people to tune to a certain degree the signals and how much momentum must exist before these standard trend shift changes signals kind of like fire. And that's also a part of the tuning element of what would go into a real bot that would be running based on BirbicatorPRO. So in general, the system itself is extremely profitable depending on which strategy you run. From an auto-tune signal or an auto signal perspective, it can be done. It's profitable out of the box. But again, it's very much like there's a ton of asterisks behind it. And I don't want people thinking that this is like necessarily that. And I will mention, we are going to be releasing, a fully toned component of that's based on BirbicatorPRO later on in another capacity for those people that, just don't want to deal with some of the different ways that Birbicator has to be tuned for certain assets. If you want to trade this against, a particular asset in an auto fashion, that's going to be probably up to you. We're going to focus on the larger cap coins because we care about people's risk management. We care about liquidity and slippage and all that stuff. That usually is the difference between a profitable Autobot strategy and also something that most people don't necessarily think about when they start throwing money at a bot online. So we want to make sure that we take all that into account and provide that service to the best of our ability when it's ready.
Yeah, because there is a question which is relevant, and it asks how much TA experience, technical analysis experience, do you need to use this tool, right?
Yeah, well, I think, I don't know how much you need to necessarily have. I'd like to think that I built it so that anybody can pick it up, and as long as they understand that, gray color down means down, and orange color up means potentially up, and there's a delta between the two. Like, how much down are we here? How much up are we? Well, we're more down than we're up. So, we're basically, again, if you looked at the baseline as a midline of the market and how much pressure is going down and how much pressure is going up, I'd say that we're more bearish than bullish right here, right? And over here, I'd say that we're more bullish than we're bearish. And so if you track the lines, I want to think if you have, signals that basically tell you when a firm momentum push over the baseline, which is the core of the system, that tells you, okay, we're thinking about going long. And then if, again, planning risk management and going through the ability to say, okay, I'm going to set a stop loss here and here, and these are going to be my TP elements as I walk up the scale. That's the next stage of the planning, the actual trader plan, that what I would hope that everybody kind of gets the idea of, even from the calls that are in the Nest Club. We don't go and enter the trades just without a plan. We have specific TP targets that we want to hit, which can be done in multiple ways with the BirbicatorPRO. You can use the mean, you can use the breaker highs, depending on where you are. You can use the bands. All these things are tools that allow you to plan and execute the different trades that you would get when you get a signal. So you pick it up out of the box, you get this signal, and then you break it, and you decide to go long. Or if you go long, then you start to, watch price action. And knowing that at the time, I have to back it up here using replay, but at the time when you got the signal, let's see if we could do this real quick. You got the signal. Now, there's a couple different ways in BirbicatorPRO to set stop losses, and this is just an example. But, if we wanted to take Williams fractals, we won't have to really go into that too much. But at the same time, it's important to kind of know, either from a banded perspective, how much risk you're going to want to lose. So, in the Nest, again, or if you even took an example of any of the calls that are provided by Jay or Libsy, you've got, an entry element. So at the close of this candle, you're going to be entering right around here, and you want to be taking a trade In this particular case, you have a confluence with, the upper band, which is already highly kind of in a downward swing. You have confirmed momentum that on the lower band that says we're overbought, and maybe you want to target these dots, which we'll talk about the dots later, but it's basically the VWAP center of BirbicatorPRO, which means that if you're going to go somewhere, it's going to gravitate to where the most volume is. And that lines up with a lot of this price action over here and over here and over here. And so let's just say that you're going to plan that trade. You need to know where to place your stops. So that's like, from a trading perspective, I can say you can pick it up. You can just follow the signals. Whenever you've found comfort in how much money you've made based on the signal, you can cut the loss. But of course, we want people to be real traders, and that means that you actually go through the process of planning out specific take profit events. You have a defined risk management plan where you say, I'm going to put my stop right here at the pivot low, defined by Williams fractals, or I don't want to lose that much. I'm going to go at the lower band 1 that's defined by BirbicatorPRO right here. And that represents a 2.7 trade. If that's okay by you, which, anything above, 2.5 is generally okay, that would be something that you would do. You try to go for 3, but maybe you're targeting R1. Maybe you're targeting breaker high. Maybe you're really bullish. That's all part of the psychology of how you kind of get accustomed to the market. Where do you think price is going? Taking in the different read of everything that's going on, not only in the chart in BirbicatorPRO, but also what's going on in the Nest, and using that to the process of playing that trade as part of your system when you pick up BirbicatorPRO. That's at least my goal and my hope that most people do. It's not just blindly taking a signal and executing, although that can be profitable. It's also taking into account the fundamentals about how you just basically plan risk management. TA, you don't need to know necessarily. You just need to know how to manage your money, which I would argue is more important than the TA.
Yeah, so you could go through a chart like this and kind of backtest it manually using the targets, sure, the BVWAP, and the entries, and you could kind of, using the replay setting in TradingView, kind of see how it would work out over time on a specific time frame. And personally, I would say that like at least 4 hour would be kind of the minimum that I would probably test it on, and like 4 hour, 12 hour, like the higher time frames seem to work particularly well with the BPRO.
Well, I think that, most of the market operates, what people don't understand is that, the 0000 UTC time is basically like the reset of the day, right? So there's a lot of algorithms, called stupid algorithms, that run and then fire off on a daily candle because it's T-WAPing or V-WAPing into a different structure that, is doing dollar cost averaging or whatever. So the whole point is these particular events are important, and the subdivides of the time scales into 6 or what I would say, you have the 8 hour candle, the 4 hour candle, and then the daily candle. Those are going to be key points of market movement just based on volume. So, that's why 4 hour and 8 hour and daily and 12 hour also work very well, because you have these subsections of how people are running their bots, and they're going to be executing in terms of creating liquidity on the other side of the book at those periodic times. So you want to track where the liquidity and the amount of the market's moving. If you go and you want to make decisions on 1 hour, well, I'd say that's going to be less confirmation, because there's going to be less bots running on 1 hour than there are going to be on 4 hour or the daily candles. So that's why we all track the daily candle structure. That's why we use the daily high and lows in intraday trading, because those are going to be basically the lines in the sand of where price is going to live by until the mass market algorithm that is everybody collectively decides we are going to go long or short based on what's happened in the past 24 hours. So that's why it's important to kind of know that psychology is not just about selecting a time frame for what looks good to you or whatever tool you decide to adopt. It's also about the psychology of whatever's running the market. And that's all the collective bots, all the collective people, all using, 4 hour, 8 hour, 12 hour daily charts. That's what people are trained to use. And that's what basically becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy for when signals are more valid or not valid.
Yeah. And talking about time frames, we have a question about the markets as well. How does BirbicatorPRO performs in Forex and stock markets? loving it in crypto. So we should point out that this is not an indicator for crypto only, right?
No, it's not. It's completely, agnostic. It doesn't really matter what you throw it at. As long as it's time series data, X price, X time and Y price, it will do it just fine.
Yeah, and
The only specification I would say around that, so people know when they get it and they're like, they put it on like a 1 minute time frame and they're like, well, where are my bands? That is because, and it's intentionally crafted that way, because the bands themselves are price deviation bands. They're not standard deviation bands based on the baseline. They are price deviation bands. So what that means is that, again, when you're planning trades and you want to go down to like the 1 minute time frame, I've said this before in live streams, you guys can check it out. There's a delta that usually exists in the market, and we could talk about like my little screen over here for like these assets that I'm watching. If I'm any Joe Schmo and I'm looking at this list and I know something went down 12% or if it went up 30%, I have a different emotional reaction to that, and it goes along down the line when you have, 20, 30, 10, 8, 5, 1. You have an opinion about how all of the assets are performing based on a percentage basis. We all operate on this percentage basis. So that's why the percent bands that exist in BirbicatorPRO are kind of meant to remind you based on that. In general, this first band, which is a short range band, is a 3% move. This is a 5% move. The next one, so 3, 5, 8, and 13%. So most of the market, most times, will have price movements between 0 and 13%. And people who know Fibonacci know that those are also Fibonacci numbers. There's a reason why it all works. It's either self-fulfilling prophecy or there's something more going on with the universe, but it doesn't matter. We only care about when price is going to move the other way or when we need to take profit. So that's really kind of an idea. If I'm going to take a trade here, I know that this price band is going to give me a 3% trade. If I want to target this one, I know that's 5%. I know that this is about 8%. I know that this one's about 13%. And if it gets there, I should really think about taking profit, because most times price doesn't go beyond 13% before it starts reverting the other way. There's very little times across the market, at least with coins that have a lot of liquidity. I'm not talking about your DeFi coin that just came off the hot press and is going up thousands of percent here. I'm talking about normal trading markets. They're not going to move more than 13% in a given period to the point where they would breach these bands, and that's why that they were selected and used the way that they are. But if you roll down to a lower time frame, you're not going to see a huge delta in a window of time that encompasses an hour where price moves 13%, which is why you have to scale down and see how far away actually 3% is, 5% is, etc. And that really just means that type of relationship can also inform you, if you think about scalping and you want to go to a 5-minute time frame, how much money am I really going to make if I enter a trade here and I'm spot? How much money is this going to really be? Is that trade worth it? Well, if I'm entering on this baseline break and I want to target the first level, which is 3%, how often has that happened? And you can kind of go back and see that based on that trade, how many times could you get chopped up in the middle of it? Is this really the time frame that you want to be operating what you do on? Is this the right configuration that you want to be using? Do you have the right risk management and principle behind your trailing stops to know that you use some type of other analysis to go to a higher time frame and say, well, I'm a part of a really big uptrend here. I'm just going to try to come in here because we're jumping off on a 2-hour signal. I'm going to go down. I'm going to scalp it in the next 30 minutes. I have a bias up. I want to try to take as much as I can from the market, but you wouldn't immediately go down to 5 minutes and say, I'm going to just target this line, because that's probably not going to happen, at least in the window that you have that you're going to be sitting at your computer doing scalping. Just to give my insight on it.
Cool. Just to Yeah, just to mention about the giveaway, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a good time now. We have the giveaway link in the description of the live stream. And I just displayed a few minutes ago the secret code, and I will do it again. You will see it on video. You can unlock the giveaway, and we offer 1 month free of Birbicator Pro. And by the way, since we are having this break, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, like, and share if you are enjoying this live stream, and subscribe to our channel, right? There are a lot of freebies here.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the B Pro system, it can be used. What I use it for a lot is in confluence with my other trading indicators and strategies. I usually will, like nowadays, what I do is I'll put it onto my chart, even if it's the last thing I'm looking at. After like I've looked at the price action, support, resistance levels, market structure, and all of those things. I will put on the B Pro to get an overall view of where the asset is in relation to the momentum bands, the baseline, see if there's divergences, all those good things that you can do to add confirmation to whatever system it is that you're using. So I think that's really the beauty of this system.
That's right. And, one thing I'll mention, because we didn't even get a chance to really go over a lot of stuff, but again, as you're planning trades with Birbicator Pro, we tried to make it, it's hard to do this in an hour, but there's so many other components that help you kind of know where price is going that you don't have to think of. Most of the time people here will draw a fib extension, figure out where am I going in the future. That's already built into the Birbicator Pro. In various ways. The R1, R2, and R3 resistances are meant to be guides for where you can plan to have, your really crazy drop bids that you want to have in case price absolutely tanks. Or, if you want to have a good idea of where price is going to revert in the future, if Bitcoin really does go through, its current resistances, these are not just, yes, these levels change over time, depending on which time frame you're on, but these are the levels that will be accountable to the same reversion metrics that Birbicator Pro tracks down here. So like 70,000 is a key level, 78,000 is a key level. Right now, R3, if we get there, 90,000 right now on the 1 hour time frame is a key level. So like knowing where price is going, you don't have to draw a Fibonacci extension. You don't know how to, if you don't know how to do that, that's fine. That's why you use those levels. If you don't know where price is probably going to accelerate, that's why we put in the breaker high. This is, if we break over this level, I fully expect that breaker high, that level 58225, will create catalyst if it's not completely dumped right immediately to send us to the next phase of the market. The mean is literally the median of the market. 55,487. It's been tested multiple times. If you wanted to, at least from this level right here, 57,400, like if we mean revert, we're going to drop down to 55,487. If we go higher or we go lower from there, depends on the market. But on this particular time frame, you don't need to necessarily do a Fibonacci retracement. You don't need to know exactly how to draw support and resistance lines. You just need to know that this level, the mean, is somewhere where you're interested in buying in case price falls below, some other levels that we're looking up here. Or if you took the short signal and you're waiting, you have a stop loss probably above these candles. And if you could stop that, fine. Wait for the breaker high to confirm, and then you'd be in a trade to take the rest of the route up. Or if it does fall, you're going to want to take profit around the mean. And same thing with the breaker low. When 53.6 breaks, if you don't know how to know based on volume or anything else what level is really key right now, to the point where if we break down low, this is going to cause a catalyst, or most likely will cause a catalyst event where we will see lower levels. So if we break lower low, that's another event that you could say, well, I'm not going to maybe take this short because we've been chopping around for the last 3 months. But if we break this breaker low, that's probably a short event, because that's a key level, and we shouldn't really break the breaker low unless we're going lower. And going back also to some of the other things we didn't cover, let's go to the dashboard. A lot of times I feel like this gets overlooked with people that use the Birbicator Pro. It's meant to be a guide to help you as well. It's a little bit I would say, hard to read or kind of maybe too much information for most people, but it is meant to take the place of some of the things you normally look at, that normal traders look at, which actually create the bias in the market. You have RSI. Do you have to have RSI on your chart? No, you don't, because you know the RSI is going up and it's at 60. We know that 80 is overbought. We know 20 or 30 is oversold. So we already know this data. Now we can't draw divergences because we don't have it on our chart, but that's why we rely on the divergence detector. So we don't need RSI. Do we need OBV? No, we don't need OBV. And if you were to look at OBV, a lot of people don't know how to read OBV. It's like, what does it do? And I don't know, a normal trader, they're not going to know how to handle this. So right now, OBV is presented to you where it's on balance volume. It's how much volume is traded up or down, and what's the bull or the bear kind of slant of that trajectory over a course of a certain moving average. So right now we're trending at 194 on the upside, which means that there's more volume up than there is down. And that's a key indicator for saying that, even if we were up here, but we had a negative OBV, I'd say that there's more pressure going down. But right now, since we're going up, it's not only an indication, since volume is the first mover in the market, that price is probably going to at least test the baseline or the breaker high. I'd say that there's a positive variance here outside of not knowing anything else, that volume is going to keep going up. As that number continually falls, and it continually updates throughout the candle, by the way, it can give you a leading edge of where price action might go. If I see this drop by 100 in any, like an intraday 4-hour or 1-hour candle, I know that that's a lot of volume moving to the downside. And that might not get picked up right away on our side because price didn't react right away. Just another something to think about. And then also with Stoke, same thing. I know Stoke 80-20, you have your oversold area down here, you have your overbought at 80. I don't need to necessarily have Stoke on my chart anymore, again, because it's wrapped into the divergence detector. But also, I just know that it's generally at 60 and it's going up. And that's kind of also wrapped up into this Birbicator trend strength and the index trend strength meter that you have here. If you have an up signal, you know that everything is just generally rising. Now, the Birbicator trend strength is a composite index of all of the different stuff that you see in BirbicatorPRO. And it's basically saying, is all those components going up or all those components going down? And the bigger this bar is, the more that are going up, the less that there are, the less amount of them that are going up. As it flips from yellow in this case to gray, that'll mean that you have a trend shift, and that could actually precede a signal and give you forewarning of where a signal might occur, though typically not. And then you have the index trend strength, which again, if you wanted to know more about the RSI, OBV, and Stoke, and as well as the other 7 oscillators that power the divergences, the index trend strength meter is actually a composite of all of those 10 oscillators. So again, just like the Birbicator trend strength, as all the 10 components of BirbicatorPRO moving up, this bar will move up. As the index trend strength meter kind of mirrors and looks at the 10 oscillators that are within BirbicatorPRO, as most of those things move up, this bar will increase. So the trend momentum will actually be indicative of these bars. As you see massive changes either to the negative downside of any one of these different bars, you can kind of assume the price action is going to follow. And that's another way that you can track intraday volatility if you're doing trading. Sorry, guys. I think that was a lot, but I'm trying to stuff in a bunch of stuff here. So
no, I think 1 hour. I think 1 hour is not enough.
No, it's not.
To analyze this tool.
No problem.
Sorry. There's a lot there, and I didn't want to leave out the main thing that people see on the chart when they load the BirbicatorPRO as this big panel here, and like, how do you even read this? I think you could easily turn it down to something like the simple version. Again, if this is too much for you, I took that into account. If you just want to know what Birbicator, the overall trend mechanics of the 10 different things that Birbicator is looking at and how much bullish it is, this is what this little tag is meant to do. And over time, again, that can give you an idea, potentially a forewarning idea of what's going to happen in terms of a signal. So if I'm just going to run this real quick and let you see how Birbicator, the actual trend meter, reacts every price, every candle, still down, still down, still down, still down, still down. All right, still down. Now we're getting a little bit good. Okay, so the Birbicator, this is the reason, this is a good example. So right now we're below the VWAP system. We're below the arcing curve of the momentum wave. Birbicator is still like down, but it's less down. So now we can assume that even though we got a buy signal here, the overall trend tracking mechanism of a Birbicator is actually saying that we're still potentially bearish just because we haven't crossed over and eclipsed this negative wave that's, at least from Birbicator's perspective, is still coming down. And that's a good way to say, okay, should I take the signal or should I wait for all of this negative momentum to be breached? Should I wait for a complete mean reversion and then take that signal out? And that's just one way that it can be used. And then once you eventually do break the negative wave above VWAP, above all the other core components of Birbicator, you're fully in the positive kind of area where you should be bullish. So that's just an example.
Yeah, there's a couple other components we could touch on a little bit, and you have already somewhat, but the BVWAP is one of them for sure, as well as the ATR signals as well.
Sure. So I was trying to go with the BVWAP earlier.
The BVWAP, the price will often revert to it, and so it can be used as like a major support or resistance area, from what I can tell.
So by default, you're going to get this. I didn't want to always have most of these of the VWAP system always presented to people. Sometimes it can be too overwhelming. So that's the reason why we have this trailing line of 5 dots always on the chart. It's always there to remind you that this is the VWAP average based and calculated based on what the Birbicator is looking at. This is the average that is important, at least from a volume perspective. So as price gravitates down and breaks through the VWAP, or it breaks up above it, that means that you're gaining, momentum over the momentum average, which should mean that you should be carried in the other direction or in the same direction as the break. So it's always good to know I always like to keep these dots in line, because whatever the momentum wave is telling you, it's also a lagged momentum wave, right? You could have a major catalyst event where there's just a crazy ton amount of volume that picks up down here. And that basically means that it's going to take Birbicator a longer amount of time to equalize this wave if you're just looking at it. But the VWAP system will actually pick that up and give you a different level to look at. Now, I wanted to show everybody just a difference, because in VO3, which is coming out soon, I'm going to give everybody the ability to kind of extend this line. And if we just look at this line from the perspective of what it does over time, it will be basically hugging and giving you a general area of direction for where price is going to go. Style, simple. And that 4 dots is like the 4 dots that you would normally see here on the BirbicatorPRO. In the next version, I'm going to give you guys the ability to extend this line and be able to track it based on volume and give that differential where the baseline is relative to the volume weighted average, and have that be yet another way that you can, kind of create and inform your bias about what price is doing. You can kind of see your price follows, the volume curve. As soon as price flips under the VWAP system, we went down, and we're not going to go back up again until we reclaim this VWAP, and that's where we're at right now. So that's good. Now, in the regular BirbicatorPRO that you get today, those lines, another thing that just to note real quick, are the average of, those lines are the average of 3 specific types of volume weighted average prices. So volume weighted average price, if you've never heard of it before, is really just the average of the volume and the price movement between a certain amount of candles looking back. Well, we anchored the look back length to key significant events within BirbicatorPRO. So if I have a crossover of a specific momentum index or a component of BirbicatorPRO, and that's tied to, say, this high VWAP line, that's when Birbicator then creates a new anchor point for when VWAP is enabled. And therefore, that high, and there's a low one, and then there's one that basically derives off the median or the midline of where price is. So taking the high, the low, and the median line and creating an average is what is presented to everybody all the time. So if you're just looking at it when you have the VWAP system enabled, you have 3 different lines you have to track. If you turn that particular VWAP system off, you know that those lines, those couple dots, those 5 dots represent the average of those 3 lines, and therefore should be more powerful, or at least a key significant area of interest if price ever gets there.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. And there was a question from a friend of ours here. If there is the one is if there is a trial, which is we don't have a trial. We are very confident about this tool, so we don't give a trial. And the other was if there is a discount. Now, we have the 200K celebrations at the Birb Nest, and we offer 13 days free access, free trial. And also you can get on our most popular plans, which is the calls only and Nest exclusive club, you can get up to 30% discount, right? But we don't offer any discounts on BirbicatorPRO for obvious reasons. This is like a very versatile tool. You can adapt it to any time frame, to any market. And actually, we have this very nice comment where a friend of ours said that he made his first money by BirbicatorPRO just by following the signal.
Yeah, it's definitely worth at least trying it out for a month and see if you like it. But yeah, unfortunately, no trial period. But it is a great tool, and people in the Nest have been loving it. And I've even seen comments on Twitter, compliments about like how nice it looks. You can change the colors. I like to change mine from the defaults to kind of fit the way my charts look. So you can make it any color you like. But yeah, it's great. Herc has another question here, I believe.
No, I think. Oh, okay, yeah. It's one question, and the question is, what about fake outs? Is BirbicatorPRO meant to avoid fake outs somehow? And is waiting for the trend signal to switch after the buy-sell signal the best idea?
Well, so for fake outs, I mean, it depends on which time frame. So again, it goes like by an automated perspective. If we're talking about auto botting, then I would say that it would not be necessarily, unless you incorporated another like kind of risk management strategy where you de-risked in the event that a trailing stop loss was hit or something like that. Now, is it going to do that by itself out of the box? Well, no, but you're going to have to set up multiple signals in order to create that whole kind of mechanism for it to happen. In terms of the fake out and how you would define whether or not a fake out happened, I do think that Birbicator has the capability to give you that information, in a forewarning kind of mentality. If you didn't have the Birbicator on at all, and Birbicator talks about these fake outs that happened over the course of the last couple months, right? And is this a fake out? Yes. Even drawn down to this low, you can even call kind of like every single one of these a fake out to a certain degree. Now, how did Birbicator kind of handle those situations? Well, if you were just doing standard TA without Birbicator, you would have the levels and you'd be able to tell that eventually in retrospect, this is a fake out, of breaking out of range. But Birbicator in itself is meant to kind of wrap price action on a dynamic level. And therefore, if I just looked at what Birbicator told me at that fake out, that critical fake out level that everybody talks about, I would know that I'm starting to eclipse above the 80% price action. I'm eclipsing above the 5% mean that this line is tracking. And I'm starting to approach the 8% differential. And I also have these shading elements, by the way, these overbought and oversold areas are basically a tuned RSI element that says that based on RSI, which is a good fundamental kind of idea of the market where you can see where price is probably getting to a crescendo, I should probably be taking profit here, or at least being, wary of whatever price action I'm seeing. As price rises and almost hits the 8% band and RSI is oversold, that fake out looks a lot different on this chart. And in addition to looking at the fact that, by default, you had a divergence here, that that, price is already far diverging from 7 out of 10 oscillators. This is probably somewhere where you're either going to break out, or depending on, again, what happens here, you're going to be looking for almost a reversion already. You're looking for a reversion because you're on the overbought side. And if we just look back, just to give an example of like the other areas that this happened, down here, was this a good buy event? Yes. Was this a good buy event? Yes. In retrospect, yes. Was this a good buy event when this is colored? Yes. Was this a good sell event? Yes. And still along down the line, it's like, is this a good buy event? Well, probably not. But you also had at that particular point, even if you did buy, and this is on a 4-hour chart, by the way, you could have easily made money on creating like this dip, coming back up, and then tagging these lines. How much of a difference is that? 5 or 6%. So again, it's really about your trade plan. If you're swing trading and you're just buying these particular elements, not knowing what else the Birbicator was telling you at the time, maybe there was no divergence and there wasn't any. So you didn't buy that. Was there one down here? No, but it's the second time we visited the bands and there was an oversold event. So maybe you did buy that, and it was also confluent with your S1 support at the time. It might have been like right around here at the time. But you have to look for confluence in everything that you do in terms of validating a particular price action. If it's a fake out, I think that personally, if you're just doing like regular TA, this is going to give you a more dynamic approach to how you view the price action, and it should be more amenable to telling you through signals that, we didn't even get into all these other ones that are there that can kind of give you an idea of when price is just hitting a ratio that, and then coming back down under that ratio, or in this particular case, coming back above that ratio, and that's giving you yet another signal that price is too strong, or I'm sorry, the bulls are too strong down here. The bears are too strong up here, even though the sell signal or the trend shift signal is going to be latent down here because the baseline is accounting for 100 MA. The ATRs are looking at another signal, and that could tell you and give you forewarning if you didn't want to know or operate on this divergence or this RSI over bought signal. You get 2 more signals before we actually get the drop. So there are ways that BirbicatorPRO incorporates that. Of course, it's dependent upon the time frame and the asset that you're looking at, as well as the trade plan that you choose to adopt, and all those things need to be considered when you use the BirbicatorPRO or any system for that matter. That's why there's thousands of different scripts and tools that are available on TradingView or anywhere else that you can get, and why there's still yet 95% of traders who lose money. It's really about developing a custom system that works for you. It's worth, taking into account that with BirbicatorPRO, you get a whole community of people using the same tool that are learning together, that are trying to figure out their own, bringing themselves up from a new trader to actually a profitable trader. And they also get to bounce off ideas, not only off, from me, for example, but also Jay and Herc and Libsy and Birb themselves for how they kind of like track and get over those standard pitfalls that most traders fall into. So that's, I think, what's the main difference between BirbicatorPRO and other indicators, or even how BirbicatorPRO handles fake outs. Kind of went into a diatribe there, but hopefully it helps.
Yeah, it's fantastic how when you see the divergence and then the ATR at those levels, and then I think the bands, the actual bands, give you a really good visual of when you should be taking profits or reducing your position in those areas where it's getting too sentiment is getting pushed too far or stretched like a band in one direction or the other, right?
Sure.
And yeah, it's because the price most of the time is traveling in this big like band, right? Or
Right.
within this set of bands, like this chart, you can see all of the price action is actually being contained within it. So you can even spot like times where it's bouncing off of those bands and enter like a position, right? And then if you're fortunate and it crosses the baseline, you could stay in the position for longer and really ride the trend. So it's incredibly versatile. And the good thing about it is, like, if you're part of the Nest and you're using the BPRO, that you have access to not only Signify, but also, as he mentioned, the other analysts who you can bounce ideas off of, and we can see if like what your analysis, if it's lining up with ours, and you get that extra confirmation with it. So yeah.
And one mistake I made, and apologies for that, is that there is a discount if you get BirbicatorPRO. If you pay by crypto, you get 10% discount. So that's a good incentive.
Right. Any more questions here?
I don't see any other questions, and yeah, we've been over an hour now. I don't know if Signify, if you have any other comments, or if you want to cover something more around the tool. I guess, as we said, 1 hour is not enough, so we might.
It's really not. You know, guys, I do hope that everybody gives it a chance. It's something I think that the trial version was mentioned a few times. My only take on our addition to that is, I personally believe that if you're going to adopt any system or tool or indicator, you can't just be jumping from indicator to indicator. And if it doesn't work the first day or first week, you know, you can't think that it's the indicator. I mean, it's really about creating a robotic mechanism and a system that you thoroughly back tested yourself and that you learn to gain confidence in. That's what's really going to truly make a difference between you being a profitable trader and a not profitable trader. People can be profitable with a lot of different things, and ultimately, you know, we try to give you a really core framework for how you can use the BirbicatorPRO in line with the community, so that you can learn from others, as well as, you know, share successes that others have with using the potential that's in the BirbicatorPRO. So I think that that's my only thing, and that's why I think that no trial is really there, because I know from building scripts and working with people over, you know, the last couple of years in doing this and training new traders, you just have to, there's a different level and a different thing that's needed in order to actually actualize a fully long-standing profitable trader. And that's fully adopting a system and then going into it and making sure that you are using everything that's in it, and then also understanding everything that's in it. And that only comes with time, and it only comes with experience, and it also comes with learning yourself as, you know, a mental trader. And trading is mostly all emotional and mental game. So outside of the indicator, I think that having time with a tool is very important. And that's also why I think it's important people give Birbicator a chance in terms of giving yourself the amount of time that you need in order to see what it's capable of. And of course, I'm here to help you. I'm here to go through some AMAs again, for the different tactics that you can use with BirbicatorPRO, the different strategies that are available. We didn't even get into anything advanced in terms of how to use these lines to find other lines and how to use other components of the system together in order to create a bias. But there's so much there, and I do hope that everybody gives it a chance, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the Nest. And thank you for your time today. Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was enlightening, to say the least. And I see a lot of positive comments in the chat as well. So
Anytime.
that was great.
Let's do it again soon, Signify. It's been great, educational, and lots of good comments here. So yeah, we want to thank everyone for joining, and we want to thank you for your time. It's been great. And yeah, I think we are good to go here. Thanks for joining, everyone. And I hope that you will check out the BPRO, and that it'll be a great system for you.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Everybody have
Take
a great
care.
day. Happy trading.
You too. Bye-bye.
You as well.